Start recording. Perfect. And then I'll do a little bit of grounding for us.
We've got some cool Italian things too.
Ooh.
We've got our owl claw.
Wow. Gnarly.
So we've got a little cleansed ritual space here too. So we're cleansing across space and time.
I love it. Perfect. Well, welcome into this space and time. Wherever, whenever you're watching from, you're still here with us in spirit, and we welcome you. Happy witchy season. If you'd like, you can take a few moments from wherever you are. Just close your eyes, take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. One more time. Good. Inviting in any guides or spirits, energies that you'd like to bring with you into this space of learning and connection today. Just taking a moment of gratitude for each other, for these gifts of technology and connection, so we're able to be in this space together from opposite ends of the world. Take one more deep breath. And you may open your eyes, return back into your space as you are ready. Welcome, welcome. Jai, I'm so excited for everything that's happening this month. Obviously, it's Season of the Witch, best time ever. And I'm super excited for our class today, Witchcraft for Wellbeing, because I get to talk to one of my dearest friends, Miss Kristin from New Orleans, who I've been estranged from since we left the city, but I'm so grateful to be able to connect here.
Through Zoom, the wonders of Zoom.
The wonders of Zoom. And now by proxy, we're connecting with women from all over the world through this space. So
incredible.
The world is wild.
You guys are going to get a little taste of New Orleans, a little taste of Sicily,
Ooh.
A little taste of Oregon, you know,
Yeah.
wherever anyone's joining us from.
We're well cultured. Perfect. So I'll do just a brief intro. I'll introduce you ladies that might not know Kristin. She's one of my dearest friends from New Orleans, one of the first friends that I made while I was there through the witchy space and community. And I've been super open about how the witchy community in New Orleans has been so beneficial to me after moving there from the Midwest, where I didn't really have a whole lot of avenues to explore paganism and spirituality, then just being thrust into New Orleans and having all of the opportunities to do that with all the amazing women like yourself and the women that we met through Crescent Craft, which is sort of a community program, a community coven that we created there.
Informal coven.
Yeah. We did moon circles, and we had witchy movie nights, and we had just specific events throughout the months that focused on different aspects of pagan and spiritual and witchcraft practices. It was so much fun, and I was so honored to be in that space with you and Tanya, our friend who is the editor and owner of Witch Way magazine as well. So that was a lot of fun.
So much fun. We're still around, virtual of course, but we are still, Crescent Craft NOLA is still alive and well. We've just obviously taken a more Zoom-tastic backseat to meeting in person, but there are still some wonderfully witchy tidbits and morsels that you could go nosh on if you did want to follow us, but for the time being, unfortunately, we're just connecting this way. I think though it's awesome that we can all reach out over the computer. I don't necessarily love computer-based interaction over being in person, but it opens the door for people all over the world to be able to sit here and communicate with us. So that's an added bonus that I didn't see coming. So I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. There are definitely pros and cons to both. I'm right there with you. I really prefer the in-person connection, but especially too hearing from women that are all over who, like I say, like myself in Indiana might not have the IRL places to go and study things like this, you know,
Sure.
they still have that option. So that's really awesome
Sure.
in that way.
And you can also do it from the quiet of a coffee shop, put your earbuds in, and for any sweet witches who are maybe not out of the broom closet yet, no one knows what you're doing on the computer.
Yes.
So you can join without letting your guard down, I guess, to anyone else if you're not quite ready. That's cool too.
One of my favorite phrases in the broom closet. I love it. Oh, wonderful. Okay, so Kristin, I'll kind of ask you some questions, but then I'll chime in a little bit too of my background and my experience too. But I just wanted you, if you wouldn't mind sharing a bit about your background with magic and witchery. From what I understand, you are one of the people that I look to the most for this. So tell us a little bit about how kind of you got into it, how long you've been practicing. I know you've lived in New Orleans for basically your entire life, so you've just been surrounded by it.
You're surrounded by magic here every day. I think when people initially think New Orleans, they think voodoo, and that's okay. We are certainly a huge voodoo population, but voodoo was brought to us by enslaved peoples during our not so light and lovable points in history. So that religion, while it can absolutely be learned, is more of a cultural identity. You have to tread very, very lightly when you dabble with voodoo. So while I definitely dabble, mine is more of a background in stregoneria and benedicaria. Benedicaria is a fancy, sweet Sicilian word for Catholic Sicilian folk magic. And so I think I raise eyebrows when people hear, wait, I just heard you put Catholic and magic in the same sentence. How did you do that? I'm like, you absolutely can. It is an old folk magic that we brought over here. My grandparents, when I say we, my grandparents brought over here from Sicily. My grandparents immigrated here in the 1940s, and they were both alive when I was born. I've since lost my grandfather, but my grandmother is still alive and well. So I have the unique advantage of growing up with these living, breathing idols, encyclopedias of knowledge that I can access. I didn't have to read it from a book. I grew up with it. And so when you're talking about Italian folk magic is straight up herbal-based witchcraft with little elements of Catholicism here and there. The Catholicism came in because Sicily is notoriously Catholic. And then when we immigrated here, New Orleans was notoriously Catholic. And Sicilian immigrants were not exactly welcome where we landed. And so the idea was you needed to convert and you needed to blend in as quickly as possible. And so we get to America, or, you know, we get to bigger cities in Italy, namely Rome, and we're looking like, well, there's an altar. We have an altar. You guys are burning incense. We're burning incense. Where's the difference? We were easily able to incorporate sort of well-known Catholic backgrounds and Catholic traditions because they were absolutely no different from ours. If you work with Hecate, who kind of has a little bit of a bad rap for being a dark mother goddess, but she is a central figure, especially a woman. To revere a woman is not seen across any branches of Christianity except Catholicism. We revere the Virgin Mary as our supreme mother, and so it didn't take us long to figure out there's not much difference there, and so we were able to acclimate easily. Again, Hecate became the Holy Virgin. Our incense, whatever the Catholic Church down here in New Orleans was peddling, our altars didn't have to change. And so it was effortless for us. We could blend in while being very unique, with avoiding some of the persecution, I think, that straight up magic came when you're just using that word strega. Strega is Italian witch. You say the S word or you say the W word, you're going to draw some attention to yourself. And as far as the other side of that coin, I've had people ask, well, as a Catholic, do you think your Catholic faith forgives the use of witchcraft? And the answer is, of course, to each their own. I'm sure you're going to come across some branches of Christianity or some Catholics who will tell you that is an absolute no. But again, we've been doing this and incorporating the supreme being God as Christians understand God for centuries, because look at colonization, look at what happened when people started moving into our little Sicilian forests. They had a very strong Christian background, and we just had to acclimate. And so to us, there's really no difference. We don't view magic, provided you are doing no harm. We don't view it as sinful. And so there would be no reason to wonder if God, as you understand God, has an issue with it. But again, to each their own. Tread very lightly on that topic. But for anyone practicing stregoneria or Italian folk magic, it's a question that we just don't, we don't consider that we're doing anything sinful. And if we are, of course, we pray for forgiveness, because remember, we've got that Catholic element going for us. So it's something that's always been effortlessly combined, similar to voodoo. Voodoo is a mix of African folklore, folk magic, and Catholicism. And so to a New Orleans practitioner, they would also not stop and think, am I really offending magic or God? It's just something that always is. And fun fact, localized, I think, to New Orleans, there was a famous Catholic priest in St. Louis Cathedral named Père Antoine, or Father Anthony. One of the alleyways by St. Louis Cathedral is named after him. And he was buddy-buddy with Marie Laveau, our most notorious voodoo practitioner or voodoo queen. And she was allowed to use the altar space in the church pretty much whenever she wanted. So I think there are very unique and small, they're rare, but I think there are spots around the globe that for us, that division was never there. And so we're able to embrace it and be more of a dualistic or dual belief system from the get-go. Whereas anyone who grew up in a more traditional Christian background may absolutely raise an eyebrow to that. But for us, it's normal and it's natural. And of course, you can be both. You don't have to pick.
Yeah. I'm having flashbacks to the haunted tours that we would do together when we would go down Père Antoine's Valley in next to
as you can imagine, they're picking up. I'm down to maybe I'm up to 2 every tour night, about around 2, some 3. So we're getting into that witchy ghost hunting, ghost tour time.
Yeah. So if any of you guys are ever visiting New Orleans, reach out to me and I can connect you with Kristin, or reach out to Kristin and she will take you on some really awesome haunted tours. That's awesome. I love that you have such an ingrained background with this. And I think that then for something like this, you and I are kind of perfect polarities for each other, because I did not at all grow up with this around me at all. I grew up very, very Christian. And to the point where my mother, she's loosened up a little bit now because I think she's realized that she has also been a witch all along. But when I was growing up, I wasn't even allowed to read the Harry Potter books or watch the Harry Potter books because it was witchcraft and witches were real and it was bad. So I really started to study witchcraft by way of my yoga and mindfulness practice, because I started to realize, like you said, after studying Eastern spirituality, it's all essentially the same thing. And now that I've gotten deeper into my studies, which have taken me most specifically down Celtic folk magic and the Wheel of the Year, seeing the parallels is so wild. Like, you study Yule and Ostara and you're like, wait, this is the same exact thing as Christmas and Easter. It's just wild. Yeah. And so beginning to kind of open yourself up a little bit to different modalities, different histories, I think is really important. And maybe for those that might feel a little bit intimidated by it, I think just having that knowledge that it's probably really closely tied to something that you've already known, and just to kind of hopefully get rid of some of that stigma that's around it. I posted a reel today that was, like a really irritated face, and was like, oh, when someone tries to tell you that witchcraft is like devil worship, and it's like, oh, it's like, no, it's so not.
Most, fun fact, most, not all, of course, to each their own, but most people who identify as witches would argue that they don't identify with a devil character. The idea, if God is all-knowing and almighty, if God is able to forgive us of our sins, the salvation, the forgiveness is available to you. So there's no need for a devil character. Again, that definitely varies from person to person and from culture to culture, but you can look at it that way. If God is the supreme being and we seek them in all their glory, there would be no need for evil. Of course, good exists because evil exists, but our responsibility as witches is to harm none. And so that's really the center underlying basis for our for what we practice. Don't hurt anybody and you're fine.
Yeah, don't hurt anybody. And I think too, this idea of like self-empowerment, that's what really brought me to it. Because being brought up very Christian, I really loved God, you know, whatever I identified that external person as. I really did feel a love and connection to that source, but it was always, you're always taught that that's something that's outside of you. You're always taught that that's something that you have to fear or beg forgiveness from. It's always kind of removed from yourself. And the more that I got into Eastern spirituality and paganism, it kind of was taking that narrative and that force and giving it back to yourself and saying, okay, well, I am not anything different. I'm not anything separate from that God. And I know that was something that really resonated with me. And I just read, sorry, last little tangent, I was reading about the fall equinox, which we just had. And I was reading about apple magic and why apples are so magical around this time. And I was reading about Avalon and, you know, old King Arthur folklore and things like that, and how the apple was seen as this fruit of sort of spiritual transformation, because Avalon was this land where you would go to and become awakened spiritually to the divinity that was inside of yourself. And so it's so funny that then the apple became the conduit for Adam and Eve. They ate the apple and then all of a sudden they realized that everything was terrible. So it's this idea that this sovereign spirituality was seen as evil, because then the church could not have a hold on you anymore. Maybe getting a little bit too
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And it's so important to remember where our written documents come from. If you are practicing more of a traditional Christian background, our documents were written by men at a time where anything a woman wrote was absolutely not okay. And they wanted that power in a very dominating way. It was that removal from God is everywhere. If you know, them, Mother Nature, Mother Earth, God is everywhere. But they wanted to wield that power and sort of dictate what you could and could not believe in. So there's certainly no hate thrown on those texts. I mean, I do still read the Bible. I adore the Bible for like a basic how to do good. Not necessarily how to textbook live your life, but to remember where those documents came from. It's just men writing things down. Take what you like and leave it. Same with witchcraft. I know some of us are more of an herbal witch, crystal witch. Some of us don't follow the moon at all, and that's okay. Similar to your magical practice, if it just doesn't resonate with you, walk away from it or give it peace and move on. So to say that you cannot practice magic and also believe in a supreme monotheistic being, remember who told you that. To men in the Middle Ages that really kind of wanted to just wield power over women. And as a witch or someone who identifies as magical, we know that history is ripe with stuff like that. So it's really no different. So go forth and practice away.
Yeah, practice your practice. It's your magic. It's your spirituality. I think, yeah, you can make of it whatever you like. So I wanted to go back a little bit to your identification as a Catholic witch, because I know when we were working together in Crescent Craft, this was something that intrigued a lot of people, and kind of you opened a lot of people's eyes in this way. So you kind of already touched on it a little bit, but maybe can you expand on some of the parallels that you see between these two ideologies?
Absolutely. As far as God, I do believe that there is a supreme energy. I certainly don't think it's male. But I think there is a supreme energy out there that orchestrates the universe, more akin to the universe. Some people do refer to a supreme being as the universe. Some more of our pagan Celtic earth witches may say Mother Nature. They're all essentially the same thing. There is some supreme force out there that gives us life, not just humans. You know, the earth, the ground, animals, water, air, fire. It's all present in Christianity. Like it's out there in your face how present it is. And if you really look at all of this, especially in Christianity, you know, with earth, you know, if you're Catholic, the teaching that God had a son, Jesus, that, you know, came to earth. There's the fire of the Holy Spirit. you're baptized in water. We purify our altar space with incense, that's air. All of your four main players in witchcraft are there. We set up altars for not only to worship God, but there are also smaller beings. We call them saints, smaller spiritual beings that you can pray to sort of intervene between you and the Almighty. They have icons, they have talismans. This is a rosary, but certainly it looks very, very witchy. Witches can also use talismans, and we set all of that up on altars. And I remember we took a vacation or a field trip to St. Louis Cathedral right here in New Orleans when I was maybe 10, sort of that golden twilight age where you're not quite like a woman, you haven't really done the maturity thing, but you're balancing those two worlds. And I'm looking at the altar and I'm smelling this incense, and you know, before we take Holy Communion in the Catholic Church, we ring bells to sort of exorcise any negative spirits, any negative energy. And I told my religion teacher, who, again, you grow up in New Orleans, you're going to get a very open-minded, accepting practice. So bear with me, because I don't necessarily think that this would fly anywhere else. But I asked my teacher, I'm just like, all of this seems kind of witchy. Harry Potter wasn't quite the thing yet, but it was about to blow up. And so, you know, that's where my interest in sort of witchcraft came from, because growing up, remember, we didn't call ourselves witches. I mean, Strega means witch, but we weren't exactly saying now this is some witchcraft, get out your witchcraft. We were just Sunday dinner. And so when I asked her, this all seems very witchy, she goes, well, yeah, I mean, it's pagan. And with no reserve about just those floodgates just open. And she's like, well, Kristin, that's pagan. An altar is pagan. Our statues, some modern Catholics would really, really be upset with me with using this word, but we've got statues everywhere of the Holy Virgin, of our saints. One could argue that those are idols, and paganism is rife with idols. Like, all of this is paganism that we sort of got our hands on during the Crusades, during this move to Christianity. But we had to eat on something. What do you think we ate on? It was paganism. And all we did was take these elements of paganism, like Yule, like Ostara, Halloween. All we did was take it, swallow it up, and regurgitate it as, well, now it's Christianity. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with taking something like Yule and being like, I think this is beautiful, but it's missing something. Christmas. Okay, well, I could do this. But in equal tangent, there's nothing wrong with taking Christmas and going, there's just something about this I just can't. Oh, Yule. It's the same thing. Again, my mantra has always been, take what you like and leave the rest for someone else. So if you're uncomfortable with any element, make it your own. There's no sacred text that says you can't. Similar to the Virgin Mary, I think any religion that encompasses a badass, powerful woman is okay with me. The Virgin Mary in Catholicism is pretty powerful. I mean, she's revered. She's given a place of honor right up there with our more important, supreme beings. We don't necessarily have an image for God, the Holy Father, but with Jesus and with the angels. I mean, she's put on this gorgeous pedestal that is suspiciously shaped like a crescent moon. There are those parallels again. And if you study mythology, if you study, especially in Celtic mythology, you've got the goddess Brigid. If you are more into sort of darker magic, you've got Hecate. All of these powerful goddesses that were revered by men. Here are the Catholic churches with the Holy Virgin. And it doesn't take even a 10-year-old long to go, wait, looks pretty similar. And again, thankfully, with my family upbringing and my background here in New Orleans, that was never challenged. I am so supremely privileged to live in a space where that was something that can be put on the table and talked about. Most people don't have that privilege. And similar with Mass, we have a midnight Mass. Midnight Mass begins with everyone's in the dark, and then you walk down the aisle in a Catholic midnight mass, and then the priest has incense, and he walks around the church 3 times in a circle with incense to clear the space. And then, of course, at the stroke of midnight, there's a choir. It's usually children singing in this gorgeously eerie tone, and then the lights will come on, and it represents on midnight mass takes place on December 24th. So only 2 days after the solstice, and we turn those lights on, and it's supposed to symbolize the coming of the light. You're bringing back that light. If anybody practices or sort of really dives into the equinoxes and the solstices, you know that that's what winter solstice is about. So we are literally doing nothing different. In fact, we didn't even change some of the words. I mean, every now and then, Yule did become Christmas, but as far as those tiny little morsels that are scattered all over the church, we didn't change them. We still have altars, incense. We do still cleanse. When you ring the bells before we take Holy Communion, sort of that symbolic ritual that states that we are partaking of eating our Savior. Sounds so cannibalistic, but again, elements of paganism there too. When we take in the communion host, it is symbolizing of our covenant, our bond with God and His Son, and you ring the bells so that no negative spirits can enter the church while you are partaking in such a beautiful ritual. Moving bells, ringing bells to banish negative energy is also highly witchy. I've got a pair of witch bells on my door right now. So once that door opens to you, I think it is so difficult to not see it anymore. Every element, Easter, the fact that Easter celebrates new life, the being that we talk about as Jesus, God's Son, was resurrected. There's new life. We talk about all the animals that are born in spring. I think as children, we were never really taught the word fertility, but they stepped around it. And it's supposed to be new life, that the world was very dark and cold, and then, Jesus came back to life. And again, you're sitting in class going, this sounds oddly pagan. And it was. You get someone who really, really can embrace that background, sort of that originality. All we did was take. There were times that we didn't take in such a nice way. We definitely, during the Crusades, we kind of came in like a wrecking ball and stole everything and didn't give anyone any credit. But I think there's more of a shift now into recognizing that, hey, this is inherently pagan. You can sprinkle a little bit of Christianity on it and call it something new, and it doesn't make it less powerful, but we do need to at least appreciate where it came from. And I do think we're moving towards that, but like all things Christians do, it can be very, very slow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in that way too, it's so much more enlightening to know that we're more connected than we are separated by all this. And so then it's kind of frustrating that it's been just centuries and centuries of separation and war and death over these things that are essentially the same thing. So I agree that we're beginning to wake up more and more to that. And so I think that's one of the most beautiful things about spirituality, is that I really do believe it connects all of us no matter what we believe. Mm-hmm. So
absolutely,
that was so awesome. And I love that we took a really great, broad, historic and cultural look at that, which I know it's always been one of the things that you are the most wise on. And so I really appreciate you sharing that with us. I guess I'll take it a little bit more kind of tangible here. So do you have any like regular, perhaps daily or weekly kind of witchy practices that are like absolutely necessary for you in your daily life?
Stregoneria and Italian folk magic centers around food. I don't think anyone would argue. If you think of Sicily, one of the first things that's going to come to your mind is like, are we going to eat? And that is very, very true. Back in the day, in our old traditions, old with an E, back in the day, we did not have modern conveniences and a lot of time on our hands. Our entire day focused around growing the food, harvesting the food, cooking the food, feeding the babies. There was no time for anything else. And so we had no choice but to incorporate most of our magic in food. Herbalism is definitely a theme you will see across Stregoneria and Italian folk magic. bay leaves, rosemary, lemons, oranges, garlic. All of those are ways that we incorporate magic into everyday life, because there are times that you are busy. Something that I definitely love, you could do it in 30 seconds, just like as you're cooking. Don't ever cook angry, and don't ever cook overly depressed. If you are angry or depressed, you call out for Uber Eats, or you make a sandwich or have someone else cook for you, because two things happen. One, someone else's energy is feeding you. Someone else is nurturing you. But two, if you cook when you're overly angry or you cook when you're overly depressed, that's an intention. You are literally leaking into what you're going to consume later. And there's this wonderful, although outdated, Sicilian belief that you sup sorrow with a spoon. And what that means is if you are emotional in a negative way and you're cooking, you're just going to eat that sorrow again, and you're not going to be able to break the cycle. And so one thing it does for me is, first off, it gives me pause. What do you need right now, Kristin? Do you just need to like call out for Uber, or do you just like need to sit on the couch and maybe just like eat food that's not too good for you and Netflix and chill? Is that what you need right now? And it's the simplest pause over, before I put my all into something, do I just need a break? You will be amazed at where your body naturally does that with everything else. Your calendar is blowing up and someone says, hey, do you want to meet on pick a day? And you are already overwhelmed. You'd be amazed at how your body gets in that rhythm of going, what do I need right now? Do I need to go out and give more of myself, or do I just need to stay home? And you'll actually decline. That is something that my grandma told me from the time we were really little. Like, if you were in a bad mood, you were not allowed in the kitchen. So just everyday mindfulness. Don't get me wrong. Do I do it every day? Am I always successful? No. But that habit, every time you sit down to eat, like, do you want to sit at the table or do you want to go sit on the sofa? Every time you mange, every time you eat, to just take a minute to go back to the Catholicism instead of saying grace, just to take a minute and really, like, you're filled with gratitude, but sit and think, what do I really need with this meal right now? And 9 times out of 10, like I said, it will follow you in these other moments of your life when you might just feel so overwhelmed. The other vein of your question is, how do you incorporate witchiness and magic into your everyday life? If you're busy, it's okay to sometimes don't. I don't want to pull back the veil of, oh my gosh, what is she doing back there in this Italian folk magic? I bet it's so fun. Sometimes it's napping. Sometimes it's taking a bath. Sometimes it's looking at my calendar and seeing there's a full moon tonight and doing absolutely no ritual at all past reading, oh, there's a full moon tonight. You don't have to if you don't want to. Another wonderful element my Sicilian brethren gave you is to nap. You eat this big meal, meals last for hours, and then go take a nap. Don't push yourself. So how I incorporate magic into my everyday life is holding space for when you just don't want to. I know that kind of sounds like a counterintuitive answer, but I think especially right now, the month of October, witches, this is our busiest month. If you're overwhelmed or you just can't anymore, don't take a break. It's okay. It's okay to go, I'm just not feeling it right now. And sit out. Sierra, I watch your videos on Instagram, and I especially love the videos where you get on and you are the most real about saying, I didn't do my magical practice today. That's okay. I didn't get as spiritual as I wanted. I didn't get as in-depth as I wanted, and that's cool. So first and foremost, to remember that you don't have to. And then second, if you want to practice a little Italian folk magic in your life, the most wonderful element about us is it all revolves around food. So cook something spectacular. Soup with all of those ingredients that I just mentioned: rosemary, garlic, bay leaves. Bay leaves are wonderful at banishing and getting rid of negative energy. Putting little something extra once a month into your soup for love and for binding. Please be very careful with those things, but just so you know, across time, no one in my family has divorced, so you know what we were slipping into spaghetti sauce once a month, but please be very careful with that one. But that is something that we've done across the timelines. Once a month, you get a very special sauce. So yeah, I think cooking, because everyone needs to eat. And so it is the simplest way to incorporate magic every single day is to just make a meal. It does not have to be something as complicated as soup, sauce. It can literally just be a sandwich. But taking one moment to be overly mindful about your spiritual practice or where your heart and mind are every day is so easy. It writes itself. So that's how I keep magic every single day. I love moon magic. I love to do moon rituals, but I would be lying if I told you my calendar was filled with perfectly scheduled and practiced, moon rituals every single month. It's just not. I'd love to tell you that on my equinoxes and my solstices, my altar is perfect and I'm doing a ritual bath with salts and rosemary in there and I'm meditating, and I'm not. I'd love to tell you that all of the candles that I have sitting just to my right to do some candle magic and some mirror gazing on Halloween night, that's going to happen in a timely manner and be overly successful. It may not. So of course, like, you go into it with all of these wonderful intentions, but also taking with love and with gratitude that it is absolutely okay after eating to do another thing that Sicilians are most notable for is napping. So just don't be too hard on yourself. Find little bitty times. I like to do it around food because Sicilians are obsessed with food, but everyone needs to eat. So just every time you sit down to do a little bit of magic with your meal, that's a really easy way to get it in, but not to beat yourself up if you skip it.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I need snaps. Yes, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's all about intention and getting in tune with your body and what you need. And yeah, not beating yourself up if you can't make it. I love that, you brought up the food and don't cook when you're angry. I think that's so fun. And it's actually something that my partner Steven and I have been doing lately, and I didn't even really equate it. It felt mindful and intentional to me, but we've really enjoyed lately, instead of doing one big grocery shopping haul where we get everything we need for 2 weeks and it's like a big to-do and it's honestly more stress than it is worth it. We think every day or every couple of days, okay, what do we want to eat tonight? Like, what do we want tonight? And then we take that day, we walk to the grocery store, we get what we need for that night, we come home, we make it. It does take way more time, but it's way more intentional, and it puts that love and that connection into the food that we make. And I think we are moving so fast all the time now, and I'm trying everything that I can to just slow the F down.
Do that. Go grocery shopping. Our Stregas and witches of old, our ancestors, did not go to the grocery store once a month or once a week and stocked up. They did go every day. And it's also far more for those of you who do work with herbs in your cooking, or you work with herbs in general. If you buy something every day and you refuse to go to the store until you use what you have, way less waste, which I mean is amazing for Mother Nature. But also you have to put more intention into those herbs. Like, this is going to go bad. What am I doing with this? And so again, that sort of effortless, there's no journal, there's no planner required to be more mindful about how you practice everyday magic. Your intention is there, just like Sarah, like you had said, don't go to the store every day. And then when you look at your bounty, what can I use today? You will be more intentional with the items that you have because you don't want them to go to waste. And so that intention, it is all about intention. You're going to increase that intention triple fold when you've got something that's about to go bad. Coming from, rural Sicily back in the day, we did not have grocery stores. So you had to use whatever's in the garden. You had to cut it yourself. You had to cultivate it. That took hours. There was no way our Sicilian brethren of old were going to have that. Everyone knows what I'm talking about, the bag of spinach in the back of your refrigerator that you don't use until it turns to mush and you have to throw it away. We didn't have that. We didn't have that option. And so if you just want to take a little bit of like old Sicily, regardless of what your background is, and sort of implement it into your daily life, it is about intention. So you're going to want to be very intentional about what you do with this stuff. And I think it's going to just improve so much. And without even doing it, just like you had said, you didn't even think about it. It was just out of necessity. Let's go to the store once a day. Sounds amazing.
Yeah. That's been what, to me, my magical and my witchy practice has been, is just bringing as much intention into everything that I do as I possibly can. And
Mhm.
I know that we had a few girls that were asking specifically, like, how do you incorporate these practices into such a busy life? I'm a mom, I'm a student, I have a job, X, Y, and Z. And I love that, we kind of already went over it. You don't have to all the time.
No.
Don't beat yourself up if you don't. It's okay if your practice is resting or just sitting, even if it's just like a 5-minute practice. You don't have to do
Sure.
something every single day. I think if I had to recommend just one thing that you do every day is just take at least one moment throughout the day and just check in with your body and do exactly what you said. Like, what do I need in this moment? Is it to order out, or do I want to cook? Do I have the energy to give, or do I need more nourished, right? So just having that
Mhm.
flexibility, especially as women, we need that more than anything. So I think that's really great.
Sure.
I'm really glad that we were able to shout that message from the virtual
No.
rooftops.
Take a break. And for moms who are thinking, must be nice, I can't. I know how difficult that is when I'm not a student. I am a nanny. I've got 4-year-old twins. They're not mine. So eventually they are able to go home. But when kids are running around, same thing. At some point, you're going to have to cook for those kids. At some point, you're going to have to cook for yourself. And I know it doesn't feel like it's a moment. Well, yeah, I'm doing a chore for someone else. This doesn't feel like a mindful moment. But again, when you just take 1 minute to pause, like, what are you putting into this meal? It really will over time help. No one is going to look at you like, well, you did it once, where's the change? This happens over time. But there will be times where you do just that simple pause, like, am I overwhelmed right now? And giving yourself the permission to do something different. That is something that everyone can do, even if you do have kids running around and screaming at you, even if you do have to get your mindful meditations in the bathroom with the door locked for the 2 minutes that you're on the toilet because kids are overwhelming. That's okay. It's finding those little bitty minutes. I think we've done women everywhere a disservice teaching them they have to carve out 30 minutes or an hour every day. That's just not true. Do a minute, and then eventually those minutes will become so important to you. You will subconsciously, Sierra has, you talked about this, you'll subconsciously find more time, because when you treat yourself to that little minute here, little minute there, you notice when they're gone. And so you will work as a full-time student, full-time New Orleanian, and New Orleans loves to throw some festivals, so I feel like that social calendar is always full. There are times where I literally had 30 seconds before I shoved something into my mouth, and that was what I called dinner. But I still had those 30 seconds. So like, you will find it if you consciously look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yay. Okay. Well, I want to be mindful of our time. And I know you have a class in a little bit too, but we did have some kind of specific questions from some of our members, and just kind of mining between the two of us what our experience, knowledge, or advice is on a few of these topics. So Bethan was asking specifically about a cord cutting ritual. Have you done any of these before? I recorded a meditation of it once that was just kind of about drawing your energy back into yourself. But have you ever done this ritual?
Cord cutting in what I think has become a traditional idea when people think cord cutting does not exist in Italian folk magic. That doesn't mean you can't do it. And it doesn't mean we don't have our own versions. But the center part of what I think most people think of when they think of cord cutting is to remove something from your person. And I know you're thinking, oh, well, yeah, a person. Not necessarily. The human mind, the brain, the psyche is just as affected as your person and your heart when it comes to removing someone or even a situation. So we have what we call a molocchio. Molocchio is like removing technically the evil eye or negativity. And so we would do a molocchio removal ritual, which combines water, holy water, herbs. Pick your favorite herb for banishing and releasing negativity. I'm not here to tell you that there's a textbook, you have to use this one. Nope, that's a lie. In Sicily, of course, bay leaves, and here in New Orleans, really, really big, so easy to find. Rosemary, throw them all in that water, and then sort of like put that bowl over your head, hold it close to your heart, and you're gonna want to take a scissors and cut the energy coming off of that bowl 3 times. It's sort of a symbolic cord cutting, but what you're doing is I know it's not the 2 candles and the rope that I think some of us are familiar with. What you're doing is you are cutting and removing your thought process to that person. That is way more of a spiritual and mental cord cutting. You are releasing your thoughts from obsessing over this person, or I know some people cord cut a situation. That's something that's more akin, if you wanted to specifically utilize like Italian folk magic, regardless of what your background is, you're going to want to remove your thoughts that are tied to that person before you even think about any cord cutting rituals that I think are we think more of with, you know, the 2 candles and the string. Some people take a white ribbon and you know, bind a photo or something that means something to that person before cutting it. So definitely make sure, if you're going to want to do a little bit of Stregoneria, that you're doing that mental psyche first, because we Sicilians believe that the Molocho, the evil eye, is sort of the basis for all your negativity. If your relationship has gone sour, evil eye. If your job's gone sour, evil eye. It's definitely a little bit of a peasant, naive reason for why things go sour, but it is so powerful and so potent. I know you guys see people walking around with the blue eye. That's something that's really, really deeply enrooted in Sicilian culture. So regardless of what your favorite cord cutting ritual is, make sure you are cord cutting spiritually and mentally and thinking as well. I'm happy to share something in depth, the sort of the steps for that cord cutting ritual. I'll send them to you. So if at another time you wanted to post it somewhere, happy to do that. But that is so important before you do anything physical, to make sure you've got that mental cord cutting ceremony done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Mindset is so important before anything. And on that note, yeah, my knowledge of it is through meditation and yoga and things like that. And so it's so interesting when you start to look at the yogic aspect of it too. It's sort of all about controlling the breath and the body. And so there are certain breathing techniques that I've been taught that, you know, work to help expel energy from the body and that like get energy moving and out. And so Bethan, who asked this question, I know you're a yogi too. So, you know, any sort of breathing that does expel energy. So like lion's breath, there's a real crazy one where you're like all wild looking, but you're expelling energy out of your body. So anything that just kind of helps to clear and release that can also be really helpful too before that. Sarah was asking about some energy protection advice. I'm not sure if it's for the home or for the body. In general, I use visualization personally for energy protection, like taking a moment to visualize sort of a white light or a bubble sort of surrounding myself. Positive affirmations for myself, you know, I am safe, I am whole, root chakra work, things like that. Do you have any advice, Kristin?
Holy water. And remember, holy water does not necessarily need to come from a Catholic church, which is moon water. Moon water that you have specifically put intentions in or blessed, anything water can be holy water. For Sicilians, of course, holy water that you get from a Catholic church is ideal, but you can also make your own. There's like for the home door washing, with a little bit of holy water or moon water or just water from the river if the elements mean more to you. A few drops of lemon. Lemon is citrusy and it sort of will banish all that negativity. So keep the home protected. And then your herbs that you resonate with, and just to kind of wash your door in a counterclockwise to banish motion. Clockwise if you want to draw protection. And then of course just bathing in it. So for Sicilians and Stregoneria, anything based around holy water. But again, you can make your own. It certainly doesn't have to come from a church. Utilize that moon water, utilize that full moon water, and that is going to be key in protection, both the house and you. You can bathe in it, then go use your door, use it to wash your door, sprinkle it on your steps. If you have like a porch, you live in an apartment, you could still do it on the back of your door. It's really, really easy, and you don't have to spend any money.
We love that.
Love it. Cheap.
Savannah was asking about herbs for purification. I know we've kind of already gone over this a few times and there aren't any specific ones, but you have rosemary, sage, I use eucalyptus, bay. Yeah, I guess those are the main ones. Yeah.
Bay is huge. For Italian folk magic, any herb you can then cook with is a big one. So before you go to any occult shop, go to your cabinet, go to your pantry first, because there's likely something that you can use there. And again, open your pantry and see, close your eyes and pick something. Why did it come to you? Google the background of that plant, and I think you'll be shocked as to, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I needed. But if you're going to specifically do a little bit of Sicilian magic, it would all be herbs that you could then put in a pot and eat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Tabitha was asking about crystals for this season specifically. I don't work with crystals as much as others. My knowledge and my use of crystals boils down to like color therapy still even. So I would think that then, any sort of black or dark crystals to help sort of like remove the energy and work with like the spiritual purification that's of this time. But like I said, that's just I don't work with crystals very much.
I'm also not a crystal witch. Crystals are probably, I adore them. They're all over the house, but they were given to me by people with more knowledge than me. One crystal that does stick out right now for this time, and it does go back to what you said about color magic, is tiger's eye. Tiger's eye is a wonderfully witchy, orangish, amber, black, Halloweeny. The color of Halloween is tiger's eye. And it is powerful for protection. Not to get a little mainstream, but it's the crystal that Jillian Owens specifically goes back for in Practical Magic. And if I don't want to give away the whole plot of the movie, but she specifically goes back for it. And that's when the sisters are sort of kidnapped and the plot of the story really gets thick. But tiger's eye is very powerful for protection. If you're getting to the dark half of the wheel, some people symbolize the dark half of the wheel with, the spirits are definitely out. All the good spirits that come for Halloween, grandma and grandpa, of course, the veil is very thin. That also sort of opens the door for some maybe not so nice ones to come through. And so tiger's eye is going to be instrumental right now. I like onyx, jet, just like you said, the color therapies. Those dark stones are going to remove negativity and also banish. So those are the 3, onyx, jet, tiger's eye, that I would recommend for right now. But again, I definitely think sit with what calls to you. I have amethyst year round. I was born in February. It's my birthstone. And so this really doesn't cater to any specific holiday or time of the year. If it resonates with you, wear it year round. Don't let anyone else tell you not to. But definitely look up tiger's eye and see how you feel about that.
Yeah, that is a gorgeous one. That's one of my
beautiful.
favorites. Wonderful. Well, Kristin, thank you so much. Final thing, I guess, how can our community be of service to you today? I know you have a lot of tests coming up. Do you need any just like good vibes? You need any?
Just good vibes. Anybody that's just sending light and love and healing right now. I really have so much gratitude that anyone would want to send me healing vibes, but I'm immensely lucky here in New Orleans. Our sister river parishes after the storm have not been so lucky. People are not okay. They're doing really poorly down there. Some are still without power. So I think with gratitude, I will thank you so much for wanting to send me, but ask you to maybe divvy it up right now. Send me the wonderful, but as you send love and light down here to me in New Orleans, just please remember our sister parishes and our witches in like Lafourche and down in the Bay and the Bayou. They've lost everything. There will be no magic for them for a while. So if you can find it in your heart to divvy it up across southeastern Louisiana, we would be so grateful for that.
Yeah. And are there any, I'm sorry, I don't know any off the top of my head, organizations that you would suggest that are trustful to donate to help with Hurricane Ida?
Absolutely. The New Orleans Musicians Clinic and the Crew of Red Beans. The New Orleans Musicians Clinic is usually they focus around New Orleans musicians, but right now they're sort of being instrumental in getting aid to our elderly communities, people who cannot go out and get it themselves. And then the Crew of Red Beans is just a phenomenal organization to give to year round. For those of you who know, Mardi Gras was canceled this year. The Crew of Red Beans were the ones who founded the Crew of House Floats, a wonderful, that actually ended up being worldwide celebration of Mardi Gras on your porch. They are turning around and taking any monetary donations that are being given right now, and they're turning around and giving it to some pretty influential New Orleanians, our Mardi Gras Indians, our Zulu chiefs for the crew of Zulu, all of those elders that are getting up there in age that really need help, but are also so critical to preserving the culture of New Orleans. So they're not just giving it to the random community service. Money is getting to those organizations. They're specifically focusing on the generations that have sort of held the torch for truly cultural New Orleans things that we cannot afford to lose, like Mardi Gras Indians and like some of our older Mardi Gras crews. So if you're really interested, New Orleans Musicians Clinic and Crew of Red Beans, we would be so thankful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will link both of those in the description right below or above this video. You'll see it. Kristin, thank you so much. I'm so happy that I got to talk with you. Thank you all for watching and enjoying. Let us know how you felt. If you have any other questions, just let us know on Instagram. And we would absolutely love to talk about this. This is what we love more than anything. So
absolutely.
Take care. Blessings.